Nick, most men out there, they know that they're capable of so much more than what they're currently living. For the guy, though, right now that is stuck, whether it's in chaos, comfort, or compromise, what's the first thing you would say to him if he came to you to wake him up to live up to his potential?
Oh man. This is I just posted a YouTube video on this, and it sounds so cliche, and it just bothers me so much that it's so true, but it's just get in shape, get fit. I, so it really does bother me to say that, because they're like, oh, come on, man, that was just a stupid answer. Like, there's got to be more. But there is more, because getting in shape and getting the fat off your body, the all of the habits and the things that you're developing to do that, delaying gratification, instilling discipline, learning how to be consistent. These are the things that once you achieve the results, they bleed into other areas of your life. And so I hate to break it to everybody, but if you're fat, get on fat, like, put muscle on your body. And it changes the way your brain works. I mean, the fat is going to make you lethargic. It's going to reduce your dopamine, to reduce your serotonin. And then it's going to erode your confidence. And all of a sudden you get a guy who is becoming more disciplined, more consistent, losing the fat on his body, getting lean, building muscle. He has higher dopamine. His hormones are working better. He's becoming more confident. He carries himself different. It just changes everything. And I cannot stress that enough. So that's why it's always like the foundation. It's like the foundational thing of rebuilding men.
I agree 100%, man. And it's a reoccurring thing I say on this show and inside of our communities is the fastest path to transform your life is through a physical transformation. I learned that lesson. For me, it was 15 years old. Like, I was fat. I remember I was ashamed that I had to buy my jeans in the Husky department of JCPenney's, and I was embarrassed to take my shirt off at a pool around teenage girls. And it like shook me and woke me up. And it's carried with me through my entire life. Nick, why do you think so many guys would maybe be, because you were kind of hesitant to even say that. You're like, it sounds silly. Like, why are so many guys hesitant to accepting that truth?
I just don't think they believe it. I think they think there's some secret sauce. They see successful people and they think that there's this this invisible secret out there that somebody that's like successful that knows that they don't know. So they're constantly like, they don't buy it. They're not buying into it because they're like, oh no, it's BS, or it's drugs, or they're on this or on that, or steroids or whatever. That's what it is. It can't be as simply as just putting the cookie down and going to lift weights, consistently every day for the next 20 years, or
what about the CEO, or the banker, the finance that achieved success? Like, maybe we need to define success here, right? Because it's not just about material success. Because I know a lot of rich fat guys, right? So, like, what are we speaking to when we talk about success here? What would you kind of say to somebody that says, well, so and so? I can't even think of like a well public. Elon Musk is a great example. Yeah. So what would you say to somebody that maybe has that rebuttal?
I love that rebuttal. I'm glad that you asked the question, because Elon Musk himself said he needs to get his shit together. Because what happens is, your bank account could look really good, but then your relationships with your children could look like straight garbage. So great, you've got a lot of money in the bank. You were successful in business, but you hate yourself, and when you look in the mirror, you hate yourself. And instead of, I don't know if, can you curse on this? Where are we at on that?
Run with it, brother. Okay. We are.
There's a way.
Real and raw.
You look in the mirror, and either you go fuck yeah or oh fuck. You look at your bank account and you go fuck yeah, or you go oh fuck. You look at your relationship with your wife, and it's one of those others, right? So it's like, how are you showing up? How does the rest of your life look like? And yeah, you can squeeze by and you can become successful. And there's a lot of successful guys that are super successful. And there's been times that I've been very successful. And guess what? My home life, not very successful. So what's it all worth? Okay, great. You got to the end of the finish line. You're super successful. You're a multimillionaire, but your family hates you. Cool, dude. You won. Not really. What's it all for? And I don't know about you, man, but the whole reason why that as a man, the whole reason why I work hard, the whole reason why I try to work smart and build things and scale my businesses and to change where I came from, because I came from nothing to build something of substantial is to create generational wealth for my family, to be the one person in my lineage that changes things forever. And it's not even for me. I'm going to die. Like the things that I'm doing now are for the second, third order effects of my family. So what's it all for? If I get to the finish line, they're like, dude, we don't even really like have a relationship or like you. I don't really care about the money. And the reality is most families, most kids don't care about the money. They just want you there. They just want you present with them.
Yeah, 6-year-old doesn't know the difference of riding in the back seat of a Mercedes or, you know, a sports car or a Toyota. Like they don't know. It's getting them from point A to point B.
I'm split. I've got a 23-year-old, an 18-year-old, and I got a 4-year-old, and then we're in the adoption process now as well. My 4-year-old could give two shits about any of that stuff. He would prefer to roll around in the cheap, it's not cheap, it's an old, you know, rusted, like, let's be honest, it's like not really taken care of 1985 CJ6, like with no seatbelts. Like he would rather get on my lap and roll around that in the neighborhood than in some freaking Mercedes or some $100,000 truck. You know what I mean? Like he just rather sit in my lap and go do things. You know what I mean? It's the experience. It's the connection. It has nothing to do with money. And like all these guys are like, well, I got to work hard and take my family to Disney World. They don't care, man. Go take your kid to the beach or the woods and go shoot BB guns and go do, you know, set up different things that cost almost nothing. And that memory will be ingrained in their brain for their entire life. So it's not about the financial success, man. That's one part of it. But think so in some of the things that I do when I do one-on-one coaching is and you guys just do this. Here's the hack. You ready? You're going to write on a board or on a notepad, you're going to write your top 4 priorities in life, the things that matter to you the most. This is how I start my coaching sessions, my one-on-one coaching sessions. Write on the board, what are your top 4 priorities of life? And then you're going to scale, you're going to grade them 1 through 4. And the reason why 1 through 4 is there's no middle ground. There's no, oh, I'm a 3. No. 4, you're crushing it. 1, you suck. Okay. And then we take a good long time and we get a notepad and we sit down and we're like, okay, what time do you wake up? What time do you go to bed? And then what do you do every 15-minute increment? I want to break down exactly what you do. And then this is what happens. We get that schedule of what they've actually invested their time in their entire day. And it doesn't line up with their top priorities in life. And I'm like, and you wonder why you're anxious and depressed and frustrated in the areas of your life are not going the way that they're going. Because you're not living congruently with the things that matter most to you in your life.
That exercise, if everybody listening got nothing more out of this conversation than just that's an exposure of truth. And I think people are more concerned with saying the things that they think others want to hear versus hearing and accepting truth.
That's 100% true. I just got done with a retreat with 12 guys this past weekend. And that was a huge portion of the conversation was ego and not sharing your truth and not sharing your trauma and not getting over it. It's because of the fear of what people might think of them if they were honest. I'm like, so you're living for someone else. You're not even living for yourself. And these are men. We had, and just so you know, for the people that are listening, this is not unique to a certain age group. We had an 18-year-old to a 73-year-old there. And it was the same conversation for both. This is just a thing that men deal with. Sooner you can stop living for other people and thinking what other people think, that's when you get free. But that's also when you let go of your ego, because ego really aligns with what, like, oh, how is this going to be received by other people?
I want to go back to the opening question, getting in shape, the first step, right? There's you see the stuff, you got a decent sized social media following, have been in the game a lot, ran a fitness company at one point. A lot of guys will hear that and they'll say, Nick, Frank, I'm working 60 hours to provide for my kids. I don't have time. So now here's another rebuttal, right? We gave the one that, you can have success being out of shape, but if it's truly about leaving the legacy, if it's truly about being there for your kids, isn't prioritizing my time in the gym, isn't that selfish?
Yeah, it's super selfish, man. You know what's really selfish? Becoming 300 something pounds and dying at 55 of obesity and coronary disease and diabetes, and leaving your family holding the bag. That's what's actually super selfish. And I say that because that's exactly that was a real story. I got fired. I was talking to a guy on Instagram. He was he was a little over 400 pounds, had a whole host of issues. Sole breadwinner for the family, had 4 kids, a wife, and basically said he couldn't afford coaching. And listen, everybody's going to hear that, like, well, he couldn't afford it, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, it's not about whether you could afford it or not. It was about taking action. Monetary wasn't an issue. Um, and, and I called him selfish. I said, you're selfish because you're going to die. Like, the reality is, if you're that weight, like, you're knocking off several decades of your life. That's just a fact. I mean, you can go Google any statistic, chat GPT statistics on obesity, heart disease, and like, we don't need to argue about that. You can try to argue it, but it's just a fact. So anyways, I made a thing saying, hey, listen, if you're overweight and you're not prioritizing your health, and you're a father and you provide for your family, you are being a selfish human being. And I got destroyed. Destroyed online, which happens a lot. It's okay. Because again, I don't really care what people think of me, because I actually give a shit about human beings. A woman responded to that video and said, Nick, you're 100% right. And I wish that my husband, who has passed, um, would have taken action in his life. And she went on and told the whole story on online. And she said, in the comment, she said, he was a great husband and a great father, but he never prioritized himself. Same thing, taking care of the family, was always there. He died at 55 years old. He had 3 kids and 6 grandkids at 55. And she said, to this day, my kids need their father and the grandkids need their grandfather. And we miss him so terribly bad. And that just broke my heart, man, because that is a story that's happening on every day, every single day. And the fact is, there are kids, and my grandfather died at 67, and there's a lot of reasons. He did like Korea and 2 tours in Vietnam, and at the time I was thinking 2002. My daughter was born in 2002. He held her on his lap, and then he passed like 3 weeks later at 67. And here I am at 43 going, 67 ain't that that doesn't seem that far away, you know what I mean? And how I miss him. And he was really the sole male role model in my life. And he died when I was 20 years old. And and you know how much shit I've gone through from 20 years old to 43, and how awesome it would have been to just being able to pick up the phone and have that phone call with him. And I don't get that. And there's a lot of other people that don't get that. So you can say that it's selfish. I think it's selfish not to.
I agree. And I think most guys, they have this misconception of the amount of time it's actually going to take to get in shape. It's not 15 hours a week, especially in the early stages. It's like
Shit, man. Go
3
for a
hours.
walk and not eat like an asshole. That's it. Don't eat sugar. Go for a walk. Don't eat like an asshole. Start there.
And you said at the beginning, you're buying back time because you're more energetic. You're going to sleep better. You're going to wake up earlier. You're going to feel better throughout the day. You're not going to need the midday nap. You're not going to crash on the couch at 6 o'clock when you should be spending time with your family. So it's an investment of a handful of hours and some discipline that exponentially pays itself back, like over the long haul. For you, Nick, you said, and thank you. Your story with your grandfather, man, was really, really moving. So I don't care what people think. You got a big following here. You're doing some amazing things with your coaching and your other companies. But one thing that pushes you through maybe some of the negativity online is not caring what others think, because you're here to serve people and you love people. Like, you love human beings at your core. Can you talk to me about where that desire to serve people came from?
It came through my own story. When I left special operations, I kind of had this identity crisis, which you hear about all the time in military, law enforcement, fire service. Um, you attach, and it happens to every, it's a human being thing. You attach your identity to this thing that you do for a long, very, very long period of time. And then you leave that thing and you're like, well, shit, who am I? And especially in my community, like, I was a Force Recon Marine, I was a Marine Raider in special operations. I did this thing for 12 years. I was a Marine, and you leave that, and there's this rhetoric that once a Marine, always a Marine, MARSOC for life, Raider for life, all this kind of stuff. But the reality is, when you're gone, brother, you're gone. They don't give two shits about you. You know what I mean? The phone stops ringing, and you're left to your own until you rebuild a tribe. And that's really where, like the thing that I do now. One of the many things that I do is I basically have created another unit for people to, like, land in, right? Another tribe for people to land in. And because we are a tribal people, men are meant to be connected. We're meant to be on the hunt together. We're meant to break bread together. We're not meant to be the lone wolf. Men are not meant to suffer in silence, be on an island unto themselves, living a life of quiet desperation. That's not the way that we're designed. We're meant to do jujitsu and grapple and fight and hunt and break bread together, because I know this for a fact, and any man knows this for a fact, because whether it's for healthy reasons or unhealthy reasons, every time you get with a group of guys, there's this weight that comes off your shoulders, even when you're doing the unhealthy thing. And that's the reason why guys go out and do guide nights and parties and play poker. Now, do I agree with all the actions that they're doing? No, I wouldn't do those. I think you can choose healthier ones, but it's the reason why they do is because the weight comes off. They can be themselves. They can laugh. They can joke, because that is why what we're designed to do. So I lost all of that, which led me on, and I wrote, the quintessential special operations guy who wrote a book. But that mine's a little bit different. It's a little bit, it's about the story of transition and the seven, and utilizing my story to show a pattern of what I call the 7 stages of transition. When something changes in your life, I saw it on repeat with a bunch of different demographics, that you go through this same kind of process. And I was like, oh, this is a thing. This is a thing that people are going through. And what happens is they get stuck in a certain chapter, and they can't turn the page and start writing the next one. And that was me. And until one night on the beach where I almost took my own life. And I realized that I needed to get help. And through that, and then kind of telling that story, people started to reach out to me, and I was like, oh, this is more of a thing. And that's really where it came down to. And then over the years, the more that you help people, you kind of like it empowers you. The more you see people win, it's almost addicting to you're like, oh shit. When I help someone and that changes their life and they become more successful, it is the best gift that you could ever receive. It really is. When you start like you're down and out, go help 3 people. You're depressed, go help 3 people. It will completely change your brain. It is the most amazing thing ever. So I really just got addicted to it. And then I got addicted to like humanity and just serving humanity. And it was something that there was a book. That's so silly. I'm pull it up for you. A mentor of mine. You ever seen this book? Where Will You Be in 5 years?
No.
So first of all, for the guys out there worried about books, don't worry about it. It's a book that looks like, I don't know if this is audio or video.
It'll be both. Yeah. Guys, go check this out on the video.
It's not really complicated. It's a lot of big things in here. You know what I mean? So it's
book written for men.
Yeah, it's a book for men. So, and I don't really necessarily believe like, where will you be in 5 years? That's not really the point of the book. It's really to ask some questions to yourself that you're not asking yourself. And through this book I read in 2018, I learned my personal mission statement because it gets you to ask these questions. And I learned in 2018, I learned that my mission was to inspire, educate, and motivate others to live a more healthier and successful life. Now, Frank, I was not doing that in 2018. Now, I was in a capacity, but not in a business aspect, right? I was doing other things. I had 7 different businesses. I was a serial entrepreneur. And I'm looking at it going, okay, that's strange, but that's what I gravitated toward. As I went through this checklist and asking questions, that's what I landed on. And through my past and whatnot. And then come to find out, fast forward, that's exactly what I do. So going back to your question, why do I help? Why does this happen? And I wear this thing right here. This was given to me by a friend. He got it on Everest, and by a Sherpa, and he gave it to me when we did a podcast together. And I wear it now, not for any, like people are like, oh, are you like religious or something or Buddhist or something? I'm like, no, not even close. I wear it as a reminder to not care about what people think and not care about the haters, because I'll tell you the story, because what I'm doing could potentially save someone's life. So he was I did a podcast with him. He was a FBI contractor. He was undercover. The story is wild. If you look up FBI contractor podcast on my channel, he was doing he was undercover in Muslim countries, posing as a Muslim, leading prayer, and then doing like basically serving people up for target packages. And if you ever worked and lived in a Muslim country, they can spot a fake from a million miles away. And he was doing a very good job. Well, he did that for a long period of time, came back to the States, was done doing that, and found him. I mean, he was all undercover work. So he wasn't in the military. So when he got done, he didn't have any network. He didn't have a community. He didn't have a title, right? He was an undercover guy. So he was really left alone, and it took a toll on him. And he planned his suicide, rented a hotel, got a body bag from the morgue, penned a note to it with his ID card, wrote a note and left it on the counter saying, apologizing to the maid for finding him, just said, call 911. Went downstairs to get a cup of coffee, and by fate, and dude, I don't even know how this happened. Like I self-published my book. I don't have like a big publisher. We self-published, ran ads through my business, and my book was in the coffee shop. He got a copy of it, read it cover to cover. decided to not kill himself and to get his hormones checked based off my book. Found out that his estrogen was through the roof, testosterone was crashed, was depressed. Said, okay, let me just give this a chance, because he resonated with my story, because my story is everybody's story. It's not special. Like, we're no special butterflies. We think we are, but we're really not. We're all just living the same thing. We just don't talk about it. And got on TRT and completely changed his life. I didn't even find this out from this guy. He met the CEO of the medical clinic that I work with, that I'm a managing partner of. And I got a call from my friend, Sydney Gordon, saying, hey, do you know this guy? I'm like, no, I don't know. He's like, let me tell you what just happened. So he tells me the story, and I'm like, what the hell? So he gives me the number, and I call this dude, and I'm like, hey man, it's Nick. He's like, hey, what's going on? And we connect, and he tells me the story, and I'm like blown away. So when he came down and did the podcast, he gave me this, and now and this was years later. So I never talked to this dude. So by me doing what I was supposed to be doing, by me telling the story, by me writing the book, saved some dude's life that I don't even know. So it's a constant reminder that my actions and the things that I'm doing, regardless of the hate, regardless of the negativity, we can get biblical on that shit, but doing that is saving someone's life that you don't even realize. And you have a response. I think that men have a responsibility to do so.
It's powerful, Nick. Just going to let everybody kind of digest that here for a minute, because there's so much wrapped up in that story. It's funny. You said you got addicted to serving people. I told you before what our group and kind of my focus outside of this podcast is about is helping these guys get off of dopamine chasing, pornography addiction. We have an entire month. It's the second. So month one, it's the deep inner work, right? Root cause issues, any trauma, anything, like you kind of begin to grow in your self-awareness. Month two is service focused. Spend a lot of time understanding the brain, how it fires these different neurotransmitters, pathways. When you take your time or resources or whatever and dedicate it to somebody else, the service of others, it doesn't release dopamine. It releases serotonin and oxytocin, which are kind of the balancing chemicals. So these guys are chasing, and it's like that calm feeling that you get, but it's a sense of joy, peace, and euphoria that I think comes with the active service. For these guys, it's nothing big. They're not writing books or creating organizations. Sometimes it's, going to the homeless shelter, paying for somebody's coffee at Starbucks.
The brain doesn't know the difference.
Exactly.
The brain doesn't know the difference. And that's what's sad, man. And I agree with you. It's what's sad is I think that people don't, because they think it has to be some grand thing or some huge epiphany or no, man, it does not. It could be the simplest act, the smallest thing. And you know what? Sometimes the smallest things are the ones that make the biggest impact.
Yeah.
So why are they not doing it?
Hold the door for somebody.
That's it, man.
And say hi. Smile at them.
Yeah. The same guy that gave me that recommended that book to me, he doesn't say, have a good day. He never says, have a good day when he meets somebody. He says, make it a great day. A lot more intention there.
Yeah.
So I stole that. So I just tell people.
It's empowering. It's putting you in the driver's seat of it. Have it. Like you have a lot of things, but you can make something out of each and every day. It's interesting. You, military guy, you obviously found your tribe. Now you've created a tribe for yourself. You made the comments like it's wired and ingrained in us to need this male companionship, to need this brotherhood, right? I don't know the exact statistic, but somewhere I think 70-80% of like gang members are boys that come from fatherless homes. Like, yeah. So I think you're understanding where I'm getting to, right? So, we have fatherlessness at an all-time high. I think 40% of kids are born into a fatherless home, where if you go back just 50, 60 years, it was 4%. We're more connected than ever socially and technology wise, yet more alone than we could possibly ever be.
More disconnected in an age of connectivity. And this is like a platform that I stand on. I say this, repeat. In an age of connectivity, men are more disconnected than ever before.
I'm curious. I started coaching guys in porn. I started the podcast in 2019. It's much like you. It was my own journey and struggle. We grew up in about the same age as you. So we grew up with Playboys and magazines and, but I fell into it because I got access to internet and, wasn't really talked and discussed about. It's been cool to kind of witness, the rise of at least the conversation. And I want to say I played a very big part in that because I've been speaking 6 years now at the forefront of this. But for me, it was getting on the other side of it that really opened my eyes up. And I started a podcast and just started sharing. Then guys started reaching out for help, just like you, right? It's like, Frank, we're resonating with your story, but we need help. We're lost. We're stuck. We're fighting it. At first, I didn't understand the depth and severity of it. And, I've gone deep into the agenda and, communism and, the destruction of, taking down a nation from the inside. And I've really bought into the belief that pornography has become a weapon to weaken the men within our nation. So for me, the work that I do serves a much bigger purpose and calling, because I see it through that specific lens. We talk about this fatherlessness and this isolation. I know you said you weren't. I don't think you're a man of faith, but you mentioned we can get biblical here. Do you think that this is agenda driven? Like, is there something out there that is trying to demasculate our men, and they're using all these things as weapons?
So as a special operations guy, there's a playbook on how to take over a country. And I like to poke fun at our northern friends in Canada, just because instead of using like a war-torn country, let's just talk about Canada, Canada. If Frank, if you and I were going to go take over, if we were going to go invade Canada and take it over by force, right? Would we be worried about the women and children? No. Would we be worried about the elderly? No. Who would our threat be?
Military age men.
Military age men. All right. So from an asymmetrical warfare environment, and which is crazy because I think in the 70s, the WEF said this. How do we mitigate military age males? Okay. So if I want to invade a country and take it over, and I don't want to like have this force of military age males push back on me, which they would, how do I negate them? Well, let's do this. Let's make them distracted, fat, and addicted to booze, women, pornography, drugs, gambling, things that are going to distract. Let's remove their faith. Okay. Let's remove fathers from the home. And if we do this, we can literally take over a country without firing a shot. Now let's turn our view to America. What has happened over the last 100 years in America? We have slowly degraded the family unit. We have made men dependent. We have made men distracted. And this is really my wake-up call was in 2020 when I looked at COVID, what happened with COVID. And I was like, oh, wow. Because how did this happen? I don't know if you know, but my gym got raided during COVID by the cops. And I felt like John Rambo. I'm like, I served my country. I'm just doing my thing. No one knew my faith, political. I mean, I didn't talk about any of this stuff. I was just running my businesses and having fun, long hair, skateboarding, surfing, with my family, doing my thing and having fun. And then they drew first blood. It's like they poked a bear. And that's kind of when I went to war against all this stuff. And I was like, how? And I'm just sitting back going, how did this happen? How did we allow this to happen? And as I dove into it and really looked at it, I said, oh, men, we allowed it to happen. Because if we didn't have an obesity epidemic, if we didn't have a heart disease epidemic, if we didn't have a fatherless home epidemic, if we actually had the values that men had decades prior, if we had God in the home again, men as a community across the country would have been like, no, you're not doing this to our kids. You're not doing this to our families. You're not doing this to the businesses in our community. You're going to find another way, because this doesn't serve us. This doesn't serve our communities. This doesn't serve our families. And I'm not arguing about the health side. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about all of the other things. Whether where you stand on COVID, regardless, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking the fact that the men just completely laid down.
Yeah.
They laid down. And why? Because they didn't have the energy. They were not thinking with their heads. They were like, I'll stay at home, watch pornography, chill on Netflix, order my triple deluxe burrito from Uber Eats, and focus on, just me. And that's how you take over a country without firing a shot. And that's exactly what they've done. And this didn't happen overnight. This was slowly eroded over the last 100 years. And they did just that. It's go look up asymmetrical warfare, how you take over a country. Go look at what special operations and the CIA did in Panama and South America. What we did in the Middle East.
It's outlined in the book, The Naked Communist. I don't know if you've read it or are familiar with it, but yeah, I think it was privately published in the 40s. I think mid 40s. The American Communist Party literally gave us a proof point. Like, go grab it off the bookshelf right now. It's like there's the 50 steps, and it's every single thing that you just shared there, man. Yeah, I saw friends, man, during that time just submit. And I was fortunate. I was here in Florida. I was already online. I stayed kind of isolated, but I did the best that I could. I think there was one place I was like denied entry into, but we had a gym that stayed open after kind of the 2-week spread. And if I went out with a family or I went out with friends, like to a restaurant, I wasn't putting a mask on. You could kick me out. But the thing is, man, I don't think people understood, because they would see me do it and I'd walk right in. And if you hold your confidence and you hold your ground and you just smile and you just be, like, there was no pushback. Maybe it helped. I'm 6'3", 250, but like
Hey,
there wasn't as much resistance as I think people thought there was going to be.
I think that says something too. That's what I said goes back to. I posted a video on YouTube talking about this. I was like, get jacked.
Yeah.
Become dangerous.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do, and people like, and I'm not saying that you're, just because you're jacked, you're dangerous. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, like, train martial arts, do jiu-jitsu, kickbox, do Muay Thai, like, learn these skills, not because you need to use them. And anybody that has those skills don't want to use them publicly.
Don't use them.
They don't use them. They avoid altercation. It's not about that. It's about the way that you carry yourself. It's your confidence, the way you show up, the way you walk in the room, the way people look at you. They see you differently. That's what matters. That's why it's important.
Let's pivot here. And maybe, obviously a lot of guys, they're gonna feel a call here. Something's gonna start to kind of spur up inside of them with everything we've discussed here so far. Kind of gives guys some tools here. If a guy accepts this call, begins to take this responsibility, first question, Nick, is like, what should he expect on the other side? Right? Like, it's not going to be easy, is it? Like, it's not just because you accept responsibility and you start to get jacked that life just becomes simple and easy. What's the expectation when you accept this responsibility?
It's so funny you say that, man, because like with our group, I'm like an anti-sales guy. I'm like, if you choose this path, your life will be exponentially harder, in a way. I mean, choose your hard, right? Um, choose hard now, easy later, or easy now and hard later. I choose hard now, but the reality is this. Um, no, it won't be easier. Your life will be exponentially harder because society is set against you. You now have you will have to develop a set of core values that you have to stick to and you cannot waver from. And every single person and everything in your life is going to challenge you to waver on your core values and your rules of engagement for life. So that's going to be hard. The system is set up against you to where everything is going to push back on you. There's something called the law of averages. Um, we celebrate mediocrity. We praise mediocrity. We praise the herd, and we celebrate the herd mentality. And what happens is, I'm a bit of a nerd. That's not true. I'm a lot of a nerd. Do you remember Loki and the whole? Do you ever see Loki and the time? I forgot what it's called. Time Authority variant. So there's a show. It's a Marvel show.
Loki is Thor's brother.
Yes. Yeah. And essentially in this show, they have like the master timeline. And every time that something happens in that timeline where it branches off and creates like a alternate dimension timeline, they trim it, they cut it because they want to create this soul timeline. So they kill an entire universe off to create this one single universe. Well, that's what I looked at that. I was like, oh, that's the law of averages. We want everybody here, just right here, and anybody that branches off on their own is looked at, negatively. Like, why are you doing that? Fall in line, follow the herd. And you'll know this because of this. When a man decides to take ownership of his life, stop being the victim and start being the victor of his life, whether it's his fitness, his health, his faith, his addictions, all right, you will find that as soon as you start doing that, you meet resistance. And it's almost like the universe is pulling you back into it. And there's this gravitational pull. Like, for instance, say this. Let's talk about your mission, pornography. I'm going to do a no pornography challenge for 30 days. I'm not going to look at anything. I'm not going to search anything. I'm not going to look at anything. Day one, and you can put this with alcohol, you can put this with any addiction. Day one, that gravitational pull is very tight, right? Like, think about, you're on the earth, you make a jump, you're like 1 foot in the air. If you can jump 1 foot, good for you. If you jump in the air, how fast are you coming back? How fast is that gravitational pull, right? But when you start getting closer to outer space, how hard is that gravitational pull? It's not as hard. So the thing is day one is really fucking hard, man. Day one is hard. Day two, hard. Day 30, not as hard. Still hard, but now you're starting to get to that atmosphere. Right? That's the problem, is everything. If you start to lose weight, people are gonna be like, oh man, or you're eating different. What do they say? Oh, live a little bit. It's just one thing. It's just one beer. It's just one thing. They start, and here's what's sad is it has nothing to do with you. Has nothing to do with what you're doing. It's the fact that what you're doing and the discipline that you're taking and you trying to better yourself makes them feel bad. So the reality is this herd mentality, the law of averages, this mediocre lifestyle, because how dare you break away? How dare you create core values? How dare you go try to better yourself? And so what happens is people start to break away, and the resistance, the gravitational pull becomes too much, and they come back down.
Crab in a bucket.
Crabs in the bucket, man. Great story. Yep. It's crabs in a bucket. But
You did some work with Bezos, right?
yeah, I was business partners with him, and we've been friends for since, well, he reached out to me when my gym got raided because he was like, hey, Nick, I saw what happened. Yeah, that's how we became friends. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was the first one I heard share that. Done a lot of work with Bedros. He's been on the show. We've had all the instructors over there. Ray, Bedros, amazing group. But yeah,
I mean,
that crowd
everybody's
number.
good over there except Ray. Ray's horrible. No, I'm just kidding. I love Ray's. He's the best.
Yeah, is this the need then for groups and organizations like the Agoge and the Rebuild Man? What we're building is you gotta get out of that environment of mediocrity and be surrounded with guys that are chasing the same things. Like leave the crabs and begin to pursue greatness with other men.
Yeah, and that's just, and we were before you started recording. That's why we were talking about it. I said, man, it's going to take all of us. Like I was, it really is. Like there should be groups like yours in every state, in every community. And if you're not doing one, and here's the thing, it's not enough to do online. Like you need to get connected in your communities, in your neighborhoods. Like it's like I feel, and I know this sounds crazy because sometimes I'm like, I think to myself, I'm like, Nick, what the hell are you doing? Like, who are you? And like, there's this like doubt that comes into like, this is just weird. And then of course, like all the negative comments and, I'm like, it is weird. I get it that it's weird, but the reality is it's true. It is so true that, and men are disconnected and we have to reconnect. And the reason why, hey, listen, I wish there was not a need for these communities. I wish that men were men of faith. They were in their homes with their wives. They were, they were doing all the things they needed to do. So we didn't need these communities, but like online. We didn't need these businesses.
Same, brother. I got a lot of skills, man.
The last 100 years, like we do need them. Unfortunately we do. We're at war with an opposition that is trying to manipulate us to take over our entire world. So we don't think for ourselves. We don't think in what's best interest of ours and our families and our communities and our businesses.
I hope this isn't too personal of a question, Nick, but we've touched on this idea of faith and God in the Bible. In your opinion, who is that opposition?
So I guess I'll reverse it. You look at any situation where you remove faith in God from a community and they fall apart, right? And you have to ask yourself why. What do they? And it goes back to me saying, well, how do you take over a country? Well, I have to remove their morals. I have to remove their values. Because a man without values has no foundation to stand on. He has no rules of engagement for life. And it was, I want to say, I was looking for it while you were talking. There was a quote from it was in the 70s with the I want to say it was the World Economic Forum, saying basically how you gain control of people. And it was basically, you have to mitigate men, and you have to remove fathers from the home. You have to remove faith-based values, and then you distract them with vices. And he said, if you do that, you can create and their point with that in the 70s was talking about creating a one world government. How do you remove America from the equation to where you open the door for a one world government? And that was in the 70s. Now we look at our country now, and what do we have? They're doing it. Some could say they've done it. Now I think over the last 5 years, men are waking up.
I think that's rough, man. I think I don't know if it's false optimism or because I'm in the trenches and I see the impact and I get to have conversations with men all across the country like you. I have seen a transition, and I think the pendulum it's always swinging, right? We went really far this way, and it's interesting because I think the fastest growing population of people finding their faith are young men.
Yeah.
There's a statistic around it. The more Bibles were sold last year, and the vast majority of them went to men between the ages of 18 and 25. Like, so this next generation is because they're hearing guys like yourself and they've seen all this other shit and they're like, that doesn't work. And you can lie to a man, but a man on the, you can lie to men, but a man on the inside knows the truth. And I think these young men are waking up to the truth because they've been brought up in a culture and society of nothing but lies.
There is an interesting thing happening on the faith side that I've noticed, that more of my, so I'm friends with Nick Bear, Jason Khalife, a ton of guys that are across America that are well known. And we've all had these conversations and we've known each other for years before this. And all of us separately, without talking, reconnected to our faith. And you have to ask yourself why. And I think you kind of nailed it. It was like, and I'm gonna pull this up. I had this kind of, not epiphany, but I was like, oh, this is it's not enough. It's not enough.
And I think the part for me, Nick, while you're doing that, is it's happening in the untraditional way. It's happening outside of the Sunday church. And Billy Graham prophesied this, I think, in the 80s, that the next wave of Christian revolution would come through the marketplace. And I think that's what you're seeing with, these leaders like yourself and Nick and the Steve Weatherfords and
it's
a lot of great men out there.
Overtly, it's not like preaching. It's a very an internal thing. And it's very,
they're living it.
Yeah, it's a living thing. It's a very internal thing. I think it's a very family thing. And all of us, like I said, have reconnected. And I do think there's this awakening, this thing that going. And the reason why that I said that is and what I put out there was, there comes a point in every man's life where discipline, grit, strength fall short. And that's where faith steps in, not as a crutch, but as a compass. When the path gets dark, you don't need more force, you need more light. And then basically at the same thing, it was, give me a second. This is, because I think this is just powerful. No. Basically, it came down to something like, when at some point, all this other stuff is not enough. Like, you can do all the work, you can do all the same thing. And I've done it. I've done the discipline thing. I'm disciplined. I've chosen hard. I've created systems. I've done everything that you can do. I've become successful. I've made money. I've helped people. I've done service. At some point, that is not enough. At some point, faith has to step in. And that is where the difference is.
I had Dr. Anna Lemke. She's Stanford's director of addiction and wrote the best-selling book Dopamine Nation. And in her book, she talked about, she works with obviously researching and professing in Stanford, but still runs a clinical practice where she helps guys with sex and porn addiction. She had this one repeating client that just couldn't break through. And she's like, she knew that he was a man of faith. And in her scientific clinical practice, this is like one of the world's leading neuroscientists, right? There's this big argument and debate, science versus religion, science for, like, which one is it? She's like, she writes about it in the book. She's like, it got to the point where in our session, I told him I wanted him to stop doing everything and just go home and pray. It's like, I asked her, I said, as a woman of science, you dedicated your life to the discovery of these things in the natural world. I said, what is it that you were looking for him to get out of praying that science wasn't solving? She said exactly what you said. She said, sometimes we just have to get on our knees and say, it's too big for me. It's too big. Life is too big. All the discipline, all the strength, all the fortitude, all of that. I'm not here to do it by myself.
Yeah, as I said, at some point, the path forward won't be found in discipline, hustle, or effort. It'll be found in faith. At some point. Maybe not initially, but at some point, it just won't be enough. You're just going to have to give in.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing, man. It's a freeing thing, because then at that point, the pressure comes off and you're like, oh, and this peace comes in. And And for me, that's hard to talk about because like I mean, not anymore, but at some point it was difficult because I like gave it all up, man. Like in combat, like I just got so angry at guys dying. I was like, if there is a God, fuck him. He's an asshole. Because, my brothers were dying and I had so like this journey for me, um, this journey for me is is a very personal one because of that. Right. Like there's a lot of anger there. There's a lot of resentment there. And I had to kind of come to terms with, you know, why things are the way they are. And that, and it really came down to this as a father. If I look at it as from a father, would a father ever want his child to be harmed? Would he ever want ill to come? Like would you want any sort of negativity or ill to come to your children? No, you love them. You love them, period, unconditionally. And I had to realize that, like, oh, we are at the driver's seat here. God doesn't drive a parked car. You know what I mean? Like men are at the garbage, for better or worse, men are at the driver's seat. And that's where there's a lot of letting go and a lot of realizing that a father wants what's best for his kids, but he can't do it for them. They have to choose. And when I kind of started, and nobody taught me this. This was something that I had to like realize and kind of come to my own in a lot of different ways, and like a lot of plant medicine, a lot of things going on, a lot of things that I've dived into that made me kind of have this peace and go, oh, yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, doing it for them is a disservice. Nick, man, this has been incredible, brother. I appreciate just your vulnerability and pursuit of seeking and finding and sharing the truth and the impact you're having with men. For the guys out there that maybe want to, tap into their world a little bit more, what things you got going on with the Agoge, anything big on, the forefront here? We're kind of entering the second half of 2025, and we'll bring the conversation to a close with our last and final question.
That's the only thing that I could say is, we like you said, men, I felt called to start getting people connected in person. So we just wrapped up one of our retreats here in the past weekend, and we got our next one in Kona, Hawaii in October, beginning of October. And there's listen, we break bread, we do jujitsu, we do hard shit, we do fun stuff. But we also do we get to the root of some issues. I have, through experience and through just really being blessed to have really great people in my life. Kind of my former teammate and I run the Agoge, and we really have created an amazing system to put something men through for an experience that really breaks the walls down. And it's not a lot of, yelling. There's no yelling and bullshit, and like there's no crazy stuff happening. It's men just getting together like we used to and breaking bread and having some really intimate, uncomfortable conversations. But man, there's this formula that we have created because we're stubborn and we got a lot of walls. And so if you're really wanting to rip the armor away and figure out why you're yin-yanging in life and why you keep self-sabotaging and why you keep going back to pornography and why you keep doing all these different things and you can't stay consistent, well, I've got a formula that will uncover why. And once you know why, then we can rip it out and we can kill it. And so yeah, we'll be going to Kona, Hawaii, October 2nd for that.
Yeah, I think what you guys are doing, man, is on the forefront of, where this kind of online coaching is going to be moving towards. You saw this rapid rise, obviously 2020. There was a need for it. We needed online community, but with the growth of AI and all the artificial stuff that's coming out and robots and stuff, like we're going to have to get back to our core being, which is this community, this connection, this real in-person touch. And I think we'll see a whole lot more organizations, the Rebuilt Man being one of them, that's doing this in-person type of stuff. So for those of you guys that are interested, we'll have all of Nick's links and his websites and information on the retreat in October, his socials, all the great stuff plugged down there in the show notes. Nick, we love to end it with the same question on every conversation here. Obviously, the title of the show is called Superhuman Life. So we've talked a lot to men here today, and leveling up and discipline and, responsibility and community and brotherhood and purpose and passion. In your words, Nick, how would you define living a superhuman life?
Man, being the captain of your own ship and the CEO of your own life. You're at the helm. No one else gets a vote. Yeah.
Amen. Guys, we appreciate you for hanging out with us here today. Share this one. We all know you have a brother that needs to hear something that was shared in today's conversation. So as we spoke about the need for service, do us a favor and do them the service by sharing today's conversation with one brother. But for Nick, Coach Frank, we love you guys. See you in the next one.